Welcome. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm excited to have two exceptional leaders in the real estate industry here with me today and team leaders. We are going to be talking about dreams over quotas. So some of the systems and processes that we use to motivate our team members and make sure that they're feeling fulfilled, they're focused on their goals, their dreams, but also that it's helping obviously the real estate team to do well in general overall as well. So it is my pleasure to welcome Melissa Charlton and Chuck Charlton from the Charlton Advantage team. Thanks for being here, both of you. Welcome.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. And I'm sure most people know who you are, but just in case, I know I've been told there's some new people in Chairman's Club this year. So can you tell everybody where you're located and just a little bit about your team overall?
Sure. Who wants to go? We're both looking at each other kind of thing.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, we're based out of Milton, Ontario, about a half hour west of Toronto, north of Oakville, and just beside Mississauga. We've been here since 2004. We moved from Toronto. We didn't know anybody, so we basically just landed. Actually, I knew one guy, and he already had an agent, right? But we started from scratch, and we've been fortunate to be in Chairman's. This was our 10th year in 2021. And our best year ever. So
yeah, speaking of that, congratulations. You're up 130% year over year in gross commission income and 69% in units. So incredible growth year 2022, 2021, and considering everything going on in the world. So speaking of that, I'm sure there's lots of things you can attribute to growth like that, but what would you say are the greatest new efficiencies that you put in place over the last year, year and a half?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, but I guess ruthless accountability would be one of them with the team. You know, that was definitely something through COVID. We kind of in 2020 we lost a bit, and towards the end of that year we decided to make some changes, and we can talk about our scorecard a little bit. But just getting rid of some of the inefficiencies. We try and have a lot of systems working within the business that just. I always say the business is like a coping mechanism for my bad memory. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you know, it's built based on getting rid of the weaknesses. And one of them for me is just, you know, not being able to remember all the details.
And how could you? I don't think anybody ever could. So once we kind of just give into that, we can build it better, right? For most of us. Okay, excellent. So I know you sent some examples with the scorecard that you just mentioned. I think we have 4 or 5 right off the bat. So I'm going to pull up the first one because I think it helps to see what you're talking about. Here we go. And let's go into full screen. There we go. And Chuck, I don't know if you want to walk us through. Can you see it on your screen? Okay.
I can, yeah, it was a bit small. I expanded it. This is basically the sales window. So this gives us a bit of a sense of where we're at. All the agents are above. We've got how they're doing with number of sales and firm deals by month. We have the targets, which is like if you look at those bar graphs, we've got the targets for appointments and then firm deals, and also where we were last year, just to gauge how things are going. So yeah, it just gives us a good sense. The agents all have different goals. So we don't set a precedent saying they all have to sell 20 properties or whatever it is. So by the end of the first quarter, we can see, have they hit that first tick box in the odometer, basically. So everybody's playing against themselves in a sense. They're playing their own game, and then they get to see how they're contributing to the whole with the big team numbers.
I absolutely love that. Is this something that you would look at? When would the team see this, or would the entire team see this particular document?
Team meetings, and then also there's, as appointments are booked and things happen, they're going into this. It's a Google sheet that essentially has different tabs on it. So it's some of them are for the team and some of them are for individuals, which we're going to see as well. We've got a couple of screenshots.
And also with the scorecard, every agent can see what each other is doing. There's complete transparency right across the team.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And that was part of what I was getting at, you know, can you see where everyone else is at? And considering it's compared to your own goals, right? It makes it a little bit easier to be transparent. I'm just going to bring up, there we go, the second visual.
But there is a buoyant effect. If you see someone who's sold more homes than you, you kind of look to them and go, okay, what are they doing that I'm not, right? So
Exactly.
it does have that effect. I think it's a positive thing to,
Yeah.
it doesn't create competition in a negative way. I think it sort of propels people forward a little bit.
The other good thing about this too that we found is it's easy for some agents to say, oh, well, you can't get business that way, or like Facebook leads don't work. But then you can see that, yes, it does work. Maybe you're not putting in the effort, but someone else is on the team and this is the result that they're getting.
Right.
Absolutely, for sure. And you can see the strengths. And is that the same? I know we're going to go into some of the other steps. Like right now, Chuck, I think this is your personal scorecard as an agent. Is that right?
Yeah, I like to look at, do I wear the hat of the agent or do I wear the hat of the leader? I think there's kind of two roles that I play. So when I'm as an agent, I look at how much I would be paid if I was in a sales role.
Mhm.
So the top part gives me a sense of appointments met, signed, firm deals,
Mhm.
my source of business, and the type of client. I really aspire to work mostly with sellers. And you can see this year, it's been close to 60%, which is good. With a couple of buyers that were kind of left over and ones that I just felt the need to work with. On the left side, you'll see things like conversion rates. So the buyers met, buyers signed, sellers met, sellers signed. The middle part, the gray area, gives us a bit of a sense of who you met, how many you signed, how many went to firm deal. That's useful because you can go back and you can look and say, okay, who did I meet but I didn't sign?
Mhm.
Who did I sign, but it's not a firm deal? So you can actually start to kind of plan your month and your week and everything else by, okay, who should I really pick up the phone and speak to today?
Yeah, when you get really organized in the system, it's who's fallen off of it, right? Because the people engaged in it, they're on the right track, or they're
For
moving.
sure. Yeah. And like it or not, the squeaky wheel sometimes gets the oil a little bit in any business, right? So it's important to look and say, did I sign someone that maybe has just been a little bit dormant that I need to get back in touch with?
Mhm.
And the right side was just a tool. We try and encourage the agents to have 3 different buckets,
Mhm.
right? So one of them is always past clients. One of them is always like the follow-up boss, which would include Facebook leads and all those kind of things. Yeah, that's an expanded version, but
Mhm.
really all you need to look for here from a business planning perspective is how many firm deals do you want? Buyers, sellers, everything has different conversion rates, right? So whether it's an internet lead or whether you decide to go knocking on doors or running open houses,
Mhm.
you just fill in the green parts. How much money do you make per deal? How many deals do you want to do? And then mostly how many attempts per hour you're going to have.
Mhm.
And then the number of weeks you want to work, it spits out in the pink how many hours you need to work, and the blue is how much money you make. So it's just simple spreadsheet things that they're just calculations based on one square to another that just gives you a sense of how to run your business, really.
Absolutely. You've got that
Yeah.
plan, right?
So this was fun, and it probably is conservative numbers, but I'd rather be that way. I'd rather them kind of achieve their goals faster by following this path.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're over, it's gravy, right? But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we can also gauge how many leads we need too, because roughly it's 10 attempts per lead is the rule of thumb there at the bottom. So, if I look at the agents and say, okay, as a collective group, they need to make 10,000 attempts a year, then we know we need to get about 1,000 leads into the system.
Mhm.
Oh, I see. It's your rule of thumb, 10 attempts per lead to
Roughly.
contact or to convert.
Yeah, basically it's the attempts to convert, right? How many, and then you get into conversations and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's a strong, that's a motivating conversion, I think, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's a different topic, like the things you guys do to warm up leads and things like that. We'll leave that for another day.
But it is trying to make it enticing to say every time you pick up the phone, it's worth $15 or whatever it is, right? That's very useful information to know.
Absolutely. It's motivating for sure. And I know this particular one is going into a little bit different. This is your process with gifts and organization. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So this would be our closing board. So it just takes the information. We have basically one sheet that just shows, like every appointment, the results, that feeds into the data for all the other sheets. But this one just pulls the data for closing. You can see they're ordered by date. And then our gift one is usually something to do with like food, right? So a moving meal or something like that, gift card. And then the second one is often something else. We have a little survival kit that we bring to clients, just things that they would need in the house. We've got charcuterie boards and welcome mats, all those kind of things. So it's just planning out, are we doing one gift, two gifts? How do we want to handle that? Again, I don't want to have where I know some agents will do like individual gifts where they just choose something unique.
Yes.
That's tough when you reach a certain scale.
It is.
It doesn't mean you can't replace these with an idea for something special, but we want to know that there's 5 or 6 choices or 8 choices or whatever it is that the agent can say that and that.
So how this works, you can't see it, but where gift 1 and gift 2 are, there's just a drop down menu that comes up. So they can just choose what they want for gift 1 and gift 2. And then the admin automatically knows. So they start planning for it before closing.
Oh, excellent. So the agent is selecting it for the client. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that just for because as you both know, there's so many team concepts. So across the entire team, whether it's your personal buyer, your personal seller, everybody gets access to the same system, the same gifts, the same process.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, there's nobody gets special treatment once the client is in the system, whether it's a Chuck and Melissa client or a team client, they receive the full treatment for sure.
And when it says no closing gift, is it that the client or the agent hadn't selected it yet?
It could be that maybe they're moving to Nova Scotia and they might be doing like a weird gift card.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes the seller may just be already living somewhere else and it's just not appropriate. Like we have some investors in Saudi Arabia and it's like, what are you going to do for them? You can't bring a moving meal. You're not going to get them a fancy charcuterie board or anything like that. Yeah, so that's the yellow would actually be the missing data. So that would be where, we would need something filled in for there. If you went back on it. But yeah, it just helps keep us really organized. It's part of our team meeting as we talk about, upcoming listings and buyers and then what closings are coming up too. So
excellent. And I would agree, the closing gifts get really, really creative. This conversation comes up all the time in our community. And I sound like the stickler because of course I'm like, well, how can you scale? And everyone wants a unique gift per client. But I find this, you get to a certain volume, it's really tricky. And I think we have one more scorecard visual. So I just want to open this one up here.
Yeah.
And is this for the whole team or per agent?
We have it for the whole team. Like this is the whole team that you're seeing, but then each individual agent has this on their page so they can see exactly where everything's coming from.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So each agent gets access to this for their own personal business, and then you have it overall for the team.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Excellent.
yeah, it's good for planning for the team. For example, if we're throwing a bunch of money at Facebook ads, how many appointments are being booked and how many firm deals?
Yeah, and you can see that this is interesting too, because always the conversation of, for example, Facebook leads or Google leads, you can see as well how well you're converting those particular face-to-face appointments to contracts. So I love the different steps based on source of business. This is fantastic, for sure. Okay, let me just close out.
It looks complicated. Like at first glance, you'd look at this and think, oh, it's like a 2 people's full-time job to put this together, but it's really not. It's
like 2 clicks. And it's
I know you asked us, I think at some point, Kathleen, like, is there like, do you have trouble like policing this? And the agents do it because it's a benefit to them because they get to see, they get to kind of track how many appointments have I had and how much money am I making? Obviously, it's a big question for them. So we don't really have to do much policing at all, right? Very rarely.
Well, and it looks like is that another tab that feeds off of the others? Like, is it kind of, as long as you're doing this piece, the majority of the rest will flow through or not really?
Yeah, all starts.
Yeah, all the agents have to do is when they book an appointment, there's a sheet that they fill out and there's drop-down menus and they click there. And then when it's firm deal, the admin click, and then all they have to do is choose a closing gift. That's all the agents are doing.
And then everything else is or the admin or operations or double checking. Okay, love it.
Yeah, so their individual page would have all their goals that they've set, but most of the rest of it is just, I would say my own maintenance on this would probably be, I usually do it before a team meeting and probably 15 minutes. I just go back in my calendar, we've got buyer consult as BC, listing consult as LC. So you can kind of like look at your calendar and immediately see where those appointments came from.
Yeah. And I always try to think like the questions we usually get. So I'm wondering if team leaders watching this are going to hear and say, yeah, but my agents like to track in different ways and focus on different things. And they all like to use a different way of talking to people. And, some want a buyer consult, some don't. What value do you think you have? Because I'm seeing it simple. Like this is our way of approaching it. So what feedback might you give if somebody asked about your approach versus that approach?
If it isn't the same across all your agents, like you don't have a certain standard, like buyer consult strategy, it's incredibly difficult to make changes or identify problems in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it's as much of a benefit to the agents as it is to Chuck and myself.
Yeah. A lot of this came from the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Right. And they talk about how even when you're playing a pickup game of basketball versus keeping score, the competitiveness changes, like the actual desire to succeed grows when you keep score. Right. And what we used to do before was we would just somewhere towards the last 60 days of the year, we would compile all the stats. The agents would say, well, I'm curious, how many homes did I sell? And it's like, this is front facing. And it's that concept of what you measure improves. And it's now a real time update of this is exactly where your business is.
Yeah, that area of focus.
So there's a lot of self-interest in them doing this.
Yeah, once you're aware, it's empowering. And I was talking with Stacey Falquin earlier today, and she mentioned as well, it's also the representation of the client experience. We want to make sure that we're all doing at least like the same minimum. Some people always go over and above, but usually, right, you want to make sure we're consistent representing the brand, which I think is important. And so again, I think knowing the progression of some people seeing that and being amazed and thinking, okay, I can only imagine having all that data and how empowering it is for the team members and for both of you. How do you get people up to that? Like, I know I'd said originally, like many moons ago, we spent some time with onboarding and those steps. And I know you've changed some things, you've improved some things, you've modeled it around your strengths and weaknesses, which we all do. So can you tell us a little bit about like, how do you take somebody who's not in the team and get them up to that level of performance in order to even be able to use all those documents and perform in line with it?
So like the onboarding process, kind of like from start to finish. Okay.
Sure, that would be great. And what works, what doesn't, what have you learned? Yeah.
Well, I learned most of it from you, right?
We collaborate.
Yeah, it's still the same as it was like, 6 years ago, the concepts. So basically when we interview someone, we invite them onto the team. So they don't even get full membership yet, right? I start training with them. We have like a manual, we call it the Charlton Advantage Academy. It has basic disc profiling, basic scripting, and then they're expected to memorize a buyer consultation. So we break it up into chunks, and then basically if they get through it, not everyone gets through it, probably about half the people, then they're invited onto the team. From that point, they sign a contract, they're assigned a mentor, and then the mentor handles all the onboarding after that. So they'll teach them how to use this, they'll teach them how to use Follow-Up Boss, they'll take them on, they'll shadow on consultations, things like that. Okay,
so again, because I mean, you guys talk to team leaders a lot too, but I talk to team leaders all day long and always but Kathleen, like recruitment's hard. Recruitment's hard and we need people and it's hard. And I don't want that person to be unsure and I don't want to lose them by doing training up front. What would your feedback be?
Lose them. You're either going to lose them up front or lose them later. Bye.
So what are the advantages? So when people hear it, because your process and I know the advantages of that person who's gone, and it's good for them and good for the team, in my opinion. But what are the advantages of saying, hey, I'm okay with half the people not getting through training? Why are you okay with losing them?
What's amazing about training and having a system around training is that how they behave in the onboarding is how they're going to behave when they're on the team. So if they're giving me excuses, I couldn't memorize this, I didn't have time for this, blah, 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 that's just going to continue, right? So might as well get rid of them then, before we have a firm contract in place, than having them on the team and dealing with all kinds of headaches.
Absolutely. I find the same. And what correlation have you noticed between how people go through the onboarding and their performance on the team after?
Absolutely. Like it's very indicative of how they're going to behave. Like some people fly through training. They're just really, really quick learners. And I find they get up and running quicker on the team. And I can tell when someone is committed, but it takes a little bit more time. It's going to take them a little bit more time to adjust to the real estate industry or the way we do business. There's absolutely a correlation.
And Chuck, anything you want to add to it? I think we covered most, but just in case.
Yeah, no, anything that happens during this beginning couple of weeks is just it's a telltale sign of how the whole team relationship is going to be, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know we have an example of some of your onboarding process. So I just want to bring this up. And Melissa, I don't know if you want to, Melissa or Chuck or both, if you want to shed some light on what this is and how you use it.
Yeah, for sure. So this is just kind of a basic checklist of what we go through. So once someone this kind of covers from when they're invited into training to when they're on the team. So I start with the basic tasks. So Melissa's tasks are the stuff kind of before they're signed to a contract. Then what we do, so when they're signed, we actually kind of take them behind the scenes so that they can see the admin process. So like they'll shadow like a staging day, a staging consultation, things like that. So you can see under Caroline's tasks, she'll take them to the storage units so they can see all the inventory. They'll shadow on a home enhancement day. They'll participate on a staging day so they know how hard it is. It's definitely not easy work.
Yeah, get them to lift some furniture, right?
Exactly. Then we have the admin tasks, which is all the regular stuff, like all the setting up their calendar, Google Drive, headshots, all that good stuff, getting their initial COI list into our database. Mm-hmm. And then you have Chuck's tasks down there, which is like setting them up on Follow Up Boss and things like that. And then I'm not sure if you have it here, but there's a separate document I have that's for the mentor, like the things that they need to do and are expected to teach them when they're on the team.
So would everything on this list be before they're formally part of the team, or is there like a cutoff line on here?
The cutoff line would be right after my tasks. So
okay.
Caroline on is basically you're on the team.
Okay. So when we're hearing like first thing, get their photo, get their business card, you're like, no, you're prepping them first. And once they get through that, then all those tasks come through.
Yeah, definitely.
And
yeah, Melissa's is more like the dating, and then Caroline beyond is like, okay, we're engaged / married now at that point, right? That's when the contract is signed and it becomes kind of a firm and binding commitment on both sides.
Like there's definitely a clear expectation for what I expect them to show up prepared with every single time they train with me. And if they're not showing up prepared, they're not going to hit the standards that are set on the team.
Absolutely. And the reason I was smiling, Chuck, is I was thinking your I personality is coming out saying dating or commitment versus they're like, this is boot camp. You're in skill training. Guess what? It's just so different. Okay. So Melissa, you mentioned about the mentor program, and I know we have a visual of one of your scorecards that actually shows, a bit of compensation that I'll show in a second going to another team member. Can you tell us a little bit about what the mentor program is, what they do, how it's working?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the time they're offered a contract on, it's not that they can't come to me if they're having difficulty, they absolutely can, but really it's the mentor's job to teach them the ins and outs on how to use like Follow Up Boss, things like that. We'll role play with them, we'll help them if they're struggling with something. It's someone that they can call when maybe they might feel a little embarrassed to talk to Chuck and I about it. And what we do, so there, like I said, there's a list of tasks that the mentor is expected to teach the mentee. And then from then on, they're compensated $500 from every deal the mentee does ongoing for the entire time they're on the team.
Oh, fantastic.
So they were really like the way we view it is they're really instrumental in setting that person up for success. And although there's a heavy lifting in the beginning, we feel like they helped out with that. And so they're going to continue to be compensated as a result.
And do you feel like is there a positive retention or even just positive good feeling factor for the agents who are mentors?
Yeah, for sure. They have more skin in the game to see that person succeed because they are being compensated for it. So they're definitely, if they can see like their mentee is struggling, they'll call them, they'll schedule calls, they'll do all those things that really I used to do as team leader, but I don't have time anymore. So it's helped offload all of that to senior agents on the team.
Yeah, and I think as people who aspire to leadership want to pay it forward, right? There's a good factor in that as part of the culture. And I'll just show that one final example that shows the compensation. I don't know if it shows the amount, but it just shows it does show the amount as well.
Yeah, a little bit on the right-hand side there. You can see mentor name, mentor commission. So out of the total. So really the team is a cash neutral. Like we're no better or worse off. It kind of goes from one agent to another. And it probably saves, I mean, ongoing, dozens or hundreds of hours of Melissa's and my time. We're still available if people want to talk, and we're not trying to avoid that. But we just want somebody to know that they kind of have a senior partner that's right there with them. So yeah, so that tracks. This is kind of the master data sheet that would be the heart and soul of where all the other stuff is displayed on those score sheets that we went over earlier.
And when you're saying it's neutral, is there a portion, I might have missed that, is there a portion that comes off of the team agents, the mentee, let me use clear language. Is there a portion that comes off of the mentee's trade that then goes to the mentor?
No.
So the team's investing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, because I know some people, many teams have tried different concepts, right, of team within team, and some have worked really, really well. Some have kind of been so-so, and some have been, as far as I know, fantastic. So I know there's a lot of questions behind it. So you're investing in this, but like you said, a lot of time and hours are coming off of your plate, and it's a positive leadership for the culture of the team, right?
Yes. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm just going to stop sharing that. Does everyone on your team want to be a mentor? Do they all aspire to be?
You know, what's interesting, sometimes I'll go to one of the agents and I'll ask them, do you want to mentor this new person coming on board? And they'll be like, no, I have 2 mentees already. I have my hands full with them. I just, want to focus on them. Or I've approached agents and some of them feel like they're not ready yet. So it depends. It's kind of a little bit of both. They understand it's a big responsibility. Like there's big reward, but there's also a big responsibility associated with it.
Definitely. And does the mentee get to request a mentor, or you assign that, or you obviously ask, but you assign who you think is the fit?
Yeah, I assign. Yeah.
Excellent.
They don't get any choice.
I love talking to you, Melissa, because I feel like we speak the same language. And I hear talk, I'm like, that sounds so much more fun. Why haven't I said dating concept instead of welcome to SEAL training? I mean, really. Anyways, so obviously it's been an interesting couple of years, and we have you here. So I'd love to ask you, what would be biggest lesson or biggest changes as leaders over the past couple of years?
Melissa, do you want to go?
Biggest change as leaders. Like Chuck said in the beginning, the accountability, we've been much better at that. And honestly, Chuck has taken over that part for me, because we both have strengths and weaknesses, and Chuck took on more of the accountability meetings with the agents, and it's going a lot better than it did when I was doing them. And the scorecard, really tracking everything, seeing where everything comes from, everyone being completely aware of how everyone else is doing, what's working, what isn't working. It removes a lot of excuses.
Absolutely. And I know another thing, I mean, if people are watching online, I think you've had, I don't know what you call it, a health, like to me, when people say, oh, you're on a health journey, I'm like, no, I'm always on a holistic journey. But there's been some changes and challenges there. Is there anything you want to share with that for those who have been watching and kind of curious about your I don't know, what would you call it? Evolution?
I guess like COVID put things into perspective. It was beautiful. Like obviously the pandemic was horrible, but from the world stopping and business stopping and just taking a step back from that really caused me to focus on my health and kind of take a hard look at things. And so that's really what I've been focusing on. And as we've been ramping up back into business, I've been able to maintain that. So it was a little bit of a blessing.
Well, congratulations. It's important. That's amazing. I'm glad to hear. And
Now, you've also shared your health journey too, and I know you've talked about the importance of being vulnerable
Yeah.
and kind of opening up, and it's actually led to some business too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely not intentionally, but just by sharing, like I share things because I want to help other people and show them like it can be easy and it's not, if you just focus on it a little bit. And yeah, as a result, like I kind of have been top of mind for other realtors in other areas, and I've received a lot of referrals as a result.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And Chuck, what about for you? I know you shared a couple of things the last time we chatted about this, but what lessons or changes as a leader?
Yeah. Well, one thing we did a couple of years ago, like aside from the personal stuff, is that we really got invested in like telling the team's story, talking about our values, having online reviews. So there's much more stick. We find like there's a lot of people that just come to us and say, I've checked you out online and I just want to work with you. So
Mhm.
we're starting to see the fruits of that labor about being
Yeah.
consistent with the brand and those kind of
Clients
things.
coming to us
Yeah,
now saying we want
they're
to work with
just,
you. Yeah.
yeah, they've already pre-screened us. We've got, I mean, just I've been blogging for 15 years. We've got, hundreds of videos out there and all the reviews, and it's now kind of easy
Yeah.
for someone to just see what we're about. Very transparent business. But I found during COVID, so it kind of it dovetailed with, me sort of getting into my 40s, and it was like I started going back to things I love doing. And I remember that line, it's like have an exciting life and a boring business. In other words, the business is kind of predictable and it just happens and it runs on systems and procedures. And so whereas I think a lot of us do the opposite. It's like our business is the thing that lights us up, but then we end up leaving a train wreck of a life behind. And Kathleen, I know you love to travel and we love traveling. And it really sucked. Like we bought a treadmill where we could walk along the beach in Tahiti just to get something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was during COVID, it was crazy how much that wanderlust was there. But I've gone back to the things that I love doing. Like I play Legos and I mix music and I do all this stuff. And it's like what I found is there was times when I thought in my life I couldn't fit that stuff in, right?
Mhm.
That I just had to be available, playing softball this summer and basketball and everything else.
Mhm.
And the truth is, if you subscribe to that kind of the big rocks, the Stephen Covey philosophy, it's like put that stuff in, the
Mhm.
business is going to work around it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and
Well, and
you're
I
so
find that
much happier. Yeah.
and you're happier, you have more energy. And I find not for everyone, because sometimes they're not that far along in building their business, but those who have, usually they've been holding back on the life part for a while, and the business expands because our energy and enthusiasm with life expands, right? Which is a really nice thing. And you both didn't mention it yet, but I also know you do a lot of charity initiatives with
Yes.
the community. And I think you mentioned that you purposely want that to be part of as many things you do now as possible. Do you want to comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. It ties in very nicely with our values, like as a team, and giving back to our community is a big one. And especially I find coming out of COVID, the need for a lot of these charities became greater. So we really put in effort, like no matter either we're running a charity event like a cereal drive for Food for Kids Halton, or we're about to do a drag show for Positive Space Network, whatever we're doing, aside from those charity events where, a client event will ask them to bring a food donation or whatever it is, we always try and tie in a charity aspect to whatever we do as a team.
And I saw some of the posts with really fun outfits for the drag show.
Oh, it's going to be
those
amazing.
Who are watching it, check out the post, because it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. On that note, I want to thank you both for a couple of reasons. First, you're always so open and transparent to share and support, the chairman's community, but far beyond that. Over the years, I've seen you support so many agents and take your time to help them, and you invest so much in your team members, which really helps the whole industry rise. So I thank you for your time and everything you do overall. And it's always a pleasure to see both of you. So thank you so much. And I hope that we inspired everybody with a little bit more of helping your team members with dreams over quotas, because I think you power people up. And like you said, Chuck and Melissa, you get excited about life. And I think we do better in business as well. So thanks for everyone for joining us. Thanks, Melissa and Chuck, once again.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody, for now.
Bye.
Bye.